from the delegates if they'd like to say a few words about these petitions and some other common sense initiatives that we support. And Delegate Lopez, you want to go first?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. It's a beautiful day, but also a very important day as we present these petitions and also make our voices heard on an incredibly critical issue for the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, we put in any number of common sense gun violence protection measures in Virginia every year. And last year, there was a lot of national attention around the fact that little kids were getting a hold of guns and you know, who don't really understand the power and the responsibility of owning a handgun or a semi-automatic weapon, and they were hurting themselves and they're hurting other people, and it was happening a lot. So I put in a piece of legislation last year that basically said it was a Class 1 misdemeanor, just a Class 1 misdemeanor, if an individual gave their child or any child under the age of 4 a firearm. That's pretty sensible, I think, right? Yes. That makes sense, because when you give a gun to a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, you're giving up control. You're giving up responsibility. And it's just, well, it's irrational, and it's wrong. Class 1 misdemeanor. It was defeated on a party line vote in the Militia and Police subcommittee dealing with this issue. As all of these sensible gun violence bills are defeated. We need to change that. And I want to thank Patrick Hope, and I want to thank all the legislators for being here today, and I'll hand the mic off to someone else about one of their incredibly important bills.
Hi, I'm Delegate Eileen Filler-Corn, representing the 41st District in the House of Delegates, Springfield Borough, Fairfax, and Fairfax Station. Thank you all so much for being here today to discuss this very, very important issue. This is an issue that's near and dear to so many of our hearts, and as you heard some of the speakers mention previously, something we've been dealing with for years now. But having the support behind, with you all behind us really will make a difference. Most of us are still reeling at the tragedy that occurred last week at Smith Mountain Lake. And it's something that we're all thinking about, and that's weighs heavily on our hearts and minds right now. And we have a choice, those of us in the legislature, we have a choice. We can sit back, do nothing, status quo, or we can make a difference and we can move forward. And myself and all the legislators that are here today have been working hard diligently for years and will continue to push for common sense gun safety legislation. I actually introduced a bill this past session, similar to what Delegate Lopez said, had a similar story, similar incident occur. The bill that I introduced would prohibit those individuals that are subject to protective orders from possessing a firearm. Again, common sense. You've already been deemed a threat. Why put a handgun in the hands of somebody who is deemed a threat? Not an extreme measure, something that I think is real, just common sense. That bill was assigned to the subcommittee, Militia Police, a subcommittee within Militia and Police. We had, I'd say, this would be giving it, I guess it would be generous to say we had probably 3-4 minute debate and discussion on the merits of that bill, and it was killed. 1, 2, 3, never made out of subcommittee, therefore we never had the opportunity to discuss that bill in full committee, and of course, therefore, none of us here has the opportunity to vote on it on the floor. That's what we're up against. But again, as I said, we know that the public supports common sense gun safety measures and legislation. And universal background checks, of course, make the most sense. And we're going to continue to pursue this, and with your help, hopefully, we will be able to move forward. Not keep the status quo, but let us help everybody and protect the constituents, the residents, the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia by enacting some common sense legislation. Thank you all very much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Plum from the 36th District, that's out in Reston. I wanted to thank Patrick Hope for sitting around the petition. His petition signatures only confirm what I have found throughout my district, and that's overwhelming support for the idea that we do some common sense things about ending gun control, or ending gun violence, I should say. Let me say that the bills that you're going to hear described aren't all that unique. I introduced, for example, the governor's universal background check bill. That's been enacted in several states. It's pretty common sense. It says if you buy from a federally licensed dealer, as is the case now, you have to get a background check. Well, all the bill said was, if you buy from someone who's not a licensed dealer, you have to get a background check. I suggest to you that's common sense, because now the loophole of allowing people to buy from unlicensed dealers in private sales is what allows guns to get in the hands of those who have a criminal background or who are violent in nature. But we can pass bills like this when in fact the legislature changes. Now, I respect and honor the groups who were here for the fact that you in your status can advocate for cause. But guess what? I'm a politician. I can advocate for what I feel, and that's just what I feel. We change the legislature, we change the outcome. This is an election year for the House of Delegates and for the Senate. And what I hope that people will do is to take a close look at where their local legislators stand on this issue. We all will tell the same story. In the House, the bill goes to the Militia Police Committee. It goes to the subcommittee of 5 people, 4 of whom have perfect records with the NRA. All the bills die 4-1. 140 members in the General Assembly, and these common sense bills for public safety and public health die with 4 votes. We've got to change that. Those of you who work in the community to change the outcome of elections, we can bring about change. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Murphy. I'm the delegate from the 34th District, which includes McLean, Great Falls, parts of Loudoun, and Wolf Trap. Thank you, all of you, for your, I want to say, perseverance on this issue. It is always gratifying to those of us who lost a loved one, as I did, to gun violence. My brother was murdered in his place of business. He had 2 robbers walk in with a gun pointed in his direction. He never had a chance. He was a gun owner. He knew how to use a gun. He had been in the military. The NRA will often tell you that if in a situation, as we have seen with Allison and Adam, if they'd only have had a gun, if someone there had only had a gun, well, my brother had a gun and he knew how to use it, and he is still dead. I am telling you that we have a responsibility to our children, to our grandchildren, to our communities, to act responsibly and to continue talking about this issue, pushing for this issue, demanding action on this issue of gun safety. I applaud all of you for everything that you do, and I'm very grateful to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Vivian Watts from the Springfield-Annandale area, and I'd like to speak to 2 aspects. I've been around a long time, and I was successful on 2 gun control bills. One of them, and these are in the years around 2000, and have a criminal background check for anyone who sells a gun. The retail merchants thought that was a wonderful idea, as they represented Kmart and a number of other such outlets, and it passed. I introduced a bill that was about the mandatory background checks. It actually got out of the House, I think it was 1999, because the legitimate dealers did not like the competition coming from irresponsible clandestine sales. But when it got to the Senate, we talk a lot about the NRA, but there's also a lot of competition within the gun rights field. And whether you're talking about the Virginia Defense League or the National Association for Gun Rights, each one of them is elbowing each other to be more and more and more reactive and conservative. And it was killed in the Senate as the Virginia Defense League came forward. I wanted to mention that because the battle is extremely tough, and I thank you all so much for the way in which you have refused to knuckle down to that kind of reactivity. But I also wanted to mention for just a moment, Peter, you know, almost daily I pass that little memorial to Mary. a little memorial just on the corner of an intersection, a little bench, a few flowers, usually a pennant for Virginia Tech. She was so proud to go to Virginia Tech. And I remember her services when everyone spoke so highly of this vibrant teenager who'd been such a heart of the Annandale High School band, etc. It is that constant reminder of real people, real loss, lives that are at stake, that unfortunately, as tragedy after tragedy after tragedy continues, that too often is lost in the public. Everybody needs a little reminder, as I see daily, of a beautiful life such as Mary Reed. Thank you.
We're going to stop there and open it up for questions. Before I do want to recognize Paul Ferguson, who's the clerk of the Arlington County